Hello, and welcome back to Friday Vinyl Club, where every day feels like a Friday and every album tells a story. I'm Jamie, and each episode I invite a guest to bring along one special record, an album that didn't just play in their life, but shaped it. This isn't about chart positions or critical reviews, it's about personal soundtracks, the records that stay with us long after the needle lifts. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by my friend Will Smith, record collector and creative soul. We first met through a mutual love of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and I've been excited to chat with Will about his album because it's a bit of a curveball. Will has brought along Trouble by RayLaMontagne, a debut full of vulnerability, gravelled vocals, a quiet intensity, and emotional rawness. But before we dive into the album and Will's connection with it, let's rewind a little. Will, welcome to Friday Vinyl Club. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, my friend. How are you?
I'm really good, really good. Looking forward to this conversation. I really am. But before we start, there's an elephant in the room, okay? You are a huge fan of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And in fact, the man behind the Instagram account, Nick Cave Bad Seeds 2000, which has an amazing 42,000 followers. But you've not picked a Nick album. Explain yourself, my friend.
All right, interrogation. Do you know what? I didn't pick one because I thought most people would probably think that that's what I would pick. So yeah, curveball. Wanted to throw that at them. But you had Kat on a few weeks ago, and she picked a Nick Cave album. And I thought, well, I don't want to do another Nick Cave album. I want to do something else. But also, this album that I've chosen for the podcast is one that not a lot of people have heard before, and it's one that I've always kind of wished people did. But at the same time, I wish people didn't, because it's like such a special album to me, and it's been so special since it came out way back in 2004, and it's always stayed with me. And I've known about this artist long before I knew about Nick, and so yeah, I mean, it's you'll understand why, I think, when people listen to it. But yeah, I just didn't want to do what people would expect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We had a wonderful chat with Kat about No More Shall We Part, the Nick Cave album. And we touched on the Vortex community, which we're both part of as well, which was a really fascinating conversation. Okay. I always like to start these conversations by going backwards in time, thinking about your earliest music memory. Can you think back? What was the sound of your house like when you were growing up? What was your parents listening to?
Well, the radio was constantly on when I was growing up. I'd always hear, and which I think is just incredible. And I'm kind of implementing that in my own life with my daughter now, having the radio on. And there's such an eclectic mix of different songs, and you get exposed to so many wonderful songs throughout the years. And the radio was constantly on, but do you know what? It was more in the car. Yeah, man, my dad used to have a cassette of Garth Brooks, the country singer. His greatest hits album, and we listened to that. I mean, I know that album. I know it's like a greatest hits album, but my God, I know those songs inside out, back to front. I know exactly every breath he takes, everything about that album, because it was just constantly playing. There's some strange sort of moments. Like, I mean, I remember back at at the house I grew up in, it was the 90s, and they had those, my parents had that, those massive sort of units with CD player and a turntable and a cassette deck, and everything, all the faders, massive speakers on the floor. Like, we had one of those. And I remember going through the CDs and the records there, and I remember picking out a CD, and it had these four guys on the front of the CD, and I was like, who are these people? They looked interesting. But there was a guy at the front of these four people, and he had this big thick moustache, and he was sitting there in this leather jacket, and he was staring right at the camera, and I was like, whoa, who is this guy? And I didn't know anything about it, but turned out it was Freddie Mercury. And it was the Queen's Greatest Hits, the first one, where it's quite an iconic shot of the four guys sitting there. But I'll never forget that image of him. And that's where my sort of curiosity got the better of me, and I wanted to find out more about who that guy was and what they were about. So I listened to a lot of Queen growing up as well, which was a really good introduction to music, I have to say. I know Queen these day and ages sometimes can be a little bit novelty, but only if you start playing their all their biggest hits, obviously. But they got some deep cuts which are just unbelievable, unbelievable. And I mean, their Made in Heaven album, which was brought out, I think, in '95. Oh, it's beautiful. It was the first album they brought out after Freddie Mercury passed away, and yeah, that was a crazy album, man. But yeah, so I was always sort of around music growing up, but and it's definitely shaped who I am. And my dad says it now. My dad's sort of listening to artists that I mean, he started listening to Prince a lot more now, and Prince is a big influence on me as well, massive influence. As big as Nick, he's right up there. And but we've always had a special bond, my dad and myself, with music, and yeah, it's cool. But I've had some really nice memories growing up, listening to all sorts of different things.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I know with Ollie, my relationship with him is really underpinned with music. Firstly, me brainwashing him as he's grown older. But nowadays it's a partnership. So he'll suggest music to me and we'll give it a listen together, which is really beautiful. It sounds like you've got that with your dad.
Yeah, so we've had that for a long time, but now my daughter, she's 3, and I've got a massive 9 cube unit in my lounge with all my records in it, and she loves them. She looks at them and says, "Can we play music?" And I say, "Yeah, of course." And she she opened up my case where I keep my 7-inch records in, and she was flicking through them, like properly flicking through them like you do in the record shop. And I was like, "Yes, she's learning." And and I just say, "Pick one, anyone, and we'll play it." I'm very particular about my 7-inch records. I think if they're worthy of being on a 7-inch record, if they're a great song and they're worthy of that, then they go into my record collection in the 7-inch records. But so anything she picks out is great. I mean, we were dancing around the lounge the other day to a James Taylor record, one of my favorites, called Up on the Roof,
Mm.
and she was just loving it. She watches it go round, and just so I'm teaching her the importance of older music, as well as I'm sure she'll, when she's growing up and she'll be a teenager, she'll like the top 40, as we all did, in our
Mm.
different decades. And but I want her to understand the importance of where music, what has influenced those people when she's older, because I did that growing up as well. I was in the playground with my CD player stuffed in my coat, and with like Elton John and George Michael, just old school stuff. And kids would be like, "What are you listening to?" And I was like, "It's good." I used to get teased by it, but I'm really pleased that I listened to my younger self, and I allowed myself to take time with these records and albums of these huge artists, which are very influential, massively.
And I think nowadays it's very difficult to take time unless you invest it in intentional listening. I think Spotify or Apple Music, the way it's very much swipe right, you can just go from
Mm.
track to track, artist to artist. And I think there's some good things about that. But at the same time, I think you lose something by not listening to an album the way the artist has put it together. They
Mm.
put that thought into it, don't they, around how it sounds, how it's sequenced, what
Yep.
story it's telling.
I was going to say, it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I spoke to Nick about on the Conversations tour that he was doing all around the world. When he came to Brighton, me and my wife went to see him, and I asked him the question about uh, 2016 Skeleton Tree, because the album sequence there, the track listing is so. I mean, you can't reorganize that and it sound the same. It would sound completely different, but it just goes through these motions if you listen to it from beginning to end. And Nick said, he feels like they're the last kind of band that would have, like, it's not like a concept album, but like albums that you have to listen to from beginning to end. You can't jump around with that album. You have to really listen to it in that sequence to really understand it. And so it is interesting what you said there. That kind of resonated with what he said as well. So no, I completely understand what you're saying with Spotify and stuff. It's hard, because it is essentially bringing up a generation of people who will be swiping around and hitting this left and right and not taking the time. But that comes along with vinyl as well. Vinyl is sort of slowing it down a bit, and I like the rise in vinyl these days, because that is helping. But I know that my daughter will have the best of both, but she will learn because it's important to me and my family, and it will be important to her as well eventually.
Mm. That experience of holding a vinyl, looking at the artwork while the disc is playing, it's absolutely fantastic. Do you remember the first time you got a vinyl that was your own, and maybe not your parents, but something that you got yourself?
Yeah, I know. I vividly remember it. So basically, this is what started my journey, not only with vinyl, but with Prince. So again, this isn't the artist that I've chosen tonight, but I bought. I mean, I Prince used to do this thing where this doesn't happen anymore. He would bring out a single, and you'd get the radio edit 7 inch, but there'll be a 12-inch version of the single as well, which was a longer version of the track, which no one really heard unless you bought it on that vinyl, unless you bought it on the 12-inch single. And that fascinated me. So I used to then sort out records by Prince. And I was thinking, right, I know the songs, I know this one. But the first one, surprisingly, people would be like, was it, I don't know, one of his most famous tracks, but it wasn't. It's a song called My Name is Prince. And it was from 1991, at the Symbol album. So basically, it was the album before he turned into the Symbol in the 90s. And an amazing album. That's a concept album as well, by the way. You have to listen to that from beginning to end to understand. Like, there's a storyline in there, and it sort of introduces him as the symbol at the end. It's incredible. I'm pretty sure they will re-release it sometime for an anniversary. But anyway, but I bought the My Name is Prince picture disc as well. I was really going out for it for my first record.
Wow.
Not only was it like a random Prince song, but it was a picture disc of him with this hat on with chains in front of his eyes, and it was great. Then eventually I started then collecting more and more, and he was just crazy with vinyl, like, and how he released them, what he released, the singles, the rarities, it was just, that's when I started my eBay my eBay times as well, like, just trying to find these rare records. I just got such a buzz out of it, and yeah, that was a really special time. And then I took that record player that my parents had, I took the turntable part off the top and managed to wire it up, and I got it running in my bedroom. So I have my first record player in my bedroom, and started getting all of these Prince records in, and then eventually I branched out into different artists. But nowadays it's quite an eclectic mix, but yeah, it's my pride and joy for sure. And that's why I was so looking forward to coming on here and talking about records. Honestly, I was like, I can't wait.
Yeah. So, like, when you were rummaging through your parents' collection, you've started to develop your own taste. You found Prince. Were there any other bands that you started to follow and start to build up their back catalogues? Were there any notable artists there?
Not from my parents, because funny, because my parents didn't really play records. They played CDs a lot. Like, we had CDs coming out the door, and it was like that, and in the car and everything, cassettes. I never was exposed to vinyl when I was younger. It's something that I've sort of found by myself,
Mm,
only by the size of it, as you mentioned earlier, like the size of the record. That's why a lot of records back in the day, their art on the front of the cover was designed for 12-inch. Like, I mean, the only one that comes to my head straight away is Sergeant Pepper,
yeah.
by the Beatles. That is a record design. That's huge. You can't shrink that down to CD. It doesn't look the same. It's not the same sort of thing. But I mean, I kind of started branching out into different artists myself, really. Growing up, I mean, my mum used to listen to Enya, Cliff Richard, and it wasn't like old Cliff Richard. It was like sort of mid 80s, slowly creeping into 90s Cliff Richard. So it was really obscure stuff. And like, and the thing is, yeah, Cliff Richard, I get it. Like, he's a calendar person, and whatever, I get it. He's not the most popular person, but there's some records that I have, like 7-inch records of Cliff Richard, that I have because it reminds me of those great times with my mum, and
Oh,
and same with
brilliant.
Enya. Like, Enya is just, I mean, I'm really getting into Enya. I have done throughout the years, but at the moment, I'm just really sort of starting to dive into her back catalogue, and her instrumentals, and everything's just beautiful of hers. But I started collecting my main collection of back catalogues was REM. REM, a huge influence. Michael Stipe, my God, like what a guy! And the music, the collaboration between the musicians and his vocals is just it's it's to die for. Honestly, it's amazing. And I started collecting REM records, and it's weird because I don't. It's a lot of same with Nick as well. Like you're going to fall off your chair in a minute, but I don't really get on with Nick's earlier stuff. I don't get on with REM's earlier stuff. I love the later stuff, like when they've matured, what they've
Mm,
been through. You hear it in their lyrics, you hear it in the music, the shifting of things. Like people want it to be the same as it used to be, and that I get that. It's a nostalgic thing. People love that sort of stuff, but it's like Ghosteen by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. You know that completely divided people, didn't it? Like that record.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what side of the fence you were on with that one, but did you enjoy it, or were you not a fan?
It took me a while to get my head around it, it's fair to say.
Mm.
And then I could pick elements out of it that resonated, but I don't think I would suggest it to a friend if somebody said, can you recommend where do I start with Nick Cave? I probably wouldn't give them Ghosteen.
Oh God, no!
Um,
Don't
you
start
know,
that.
but in the same token, I wouldn't go back to Birthday Party either. So I would fall somewhere in the middle.
Mm,
And I think me and Kat had that discussion. Nick's got such a vast back catalogue and everything's different that you're kind of like, where would you start with somebody? You've really got to know the person, I think, that you're giving the album to,
exactly. I mean,
you know.
my collection with Nick starts from The Good Son onwards, and it kind of goes from that way, really. Like, I haven't got Tender Prey or Firstborn Dead. I haven't got any of that because it's just something that I just don't get on with. You know, I appreciate the art and appreciate the that time, but it's not something that I would ever really be like, hey, I'm going to chuck that one on and listen to it. But
Mm.
no, later stuff is kind of something that I really get involved with. And I've got this weird thing about really loving like an artist's worst album. Like you know, the one that is known. I mean, REM had an album in 2004 called Around the Sun. It's been dubbed their worst album they've ever made, and they made a lot of albums, and I absolutely love it. Like it is the best album ever. Like for me, it's great, and everyone thinks I'm mad, but I'm like, it's got such great memories for me. I love the lyrics. I love how people hate it, and that's what makes me love it even more. So yeah, I've got a strange relationship with that kind of thing. I don't know. I might write a book about it one day, but hey.
I think that's absolutely quite beautiful, to be honest with you. It's like you're taking the problem child and giving it a hug.
Oh, I guess so. Do you know what? I still can't get on with Nocturama though, by the Bad Seeds. I know I keep using those in a reference, but can't get hold of it. Can't get on with it. It's just not great.
You've thrown around some really big artists here. You mentioned Elton John. You've mentioned Prince, Freddie, obviously from Queen. Do you remember getting out of the house into the live gig scene?
Mhm.
Can you remember your first gigs that you went to?
Well, I remember my first live musical introduction was in a theatre, and it was a guy called Dennis LeCourrier, who is the lead singer of Doctor Hook. And now, people who might not know Doctor Hook, you will know their songs. Trust me, you will know their songs. Look it up. But my dad had his solo album because he went on to do solo stuff. And Dennis LeCourrier, not my dad. And and he and I loved it. My dad would play it for me, and I was like, I really like the songs. And he was like, oh, he's playing, down the road. Do you want to go and see it in the theatre? And I was like, absolutely. And I got this great love of his voice, and he used to just come on with an acoustic guitar and play these songs. And I would hear the songs on the record on the CD my dad would play with the drums, the bass, and all that sort of stuff. But he would just come on with an acoustic guitar and play those songs, and it was just like he would fly. And it was something I'd never experienced before, like hearing that. So that was my first sort of musical introduction. Now, my first gig that I went to, you're going to be like, didn't see that coming, was Simply Red at Leeds Castle in Kent. So it was an outdoor stadium sort of thing with this massive like castle in the background with fireworks and like light shows and everything. And it was in 2003, and they were promoting their album called Home, which I think personally was their last best album. And I was so desperate to see them because I love this album. I didn't really know much about Simply Red, to be honest with you. I just really liked this album. And I was like, right, we're going to see Simply Red at Leeds Castle. So off we went. And that was my very first proper like show, like outdoor or like, a concert sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of got eased in with the live sessions of in a theatre sort of way, and then just went absolutely nuts in a big concert like that. But yeah, Simply Red, amazing as well. Like a great band, beautiful stuff they've done from early till later, as I said. But they do still have some good later stuff. But yeah, I've seen them live a few times as well, which was good. But yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, the great thing is I can edit this podcast, so when I say I hate Simply Red, I can put that.
Keep it in. I don't care.
I can put that. I can
We're
put
just chilling.
that in there. I could throw that out there. We just inherited from one of our friends the best of Doctor Hook. Would you believe?
Oh,
I have not actually played it yet, but I do know that there are, from memory, I think When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman, and I think it's called Sylvia's Mother.
Sylvia's Mother.
Yeah.
That's a song that I grew up listening to, and it is beautiful. If you can find the Denis Lecourier live version of him singing that, don't ask me how to spell his surname, please. I'm dyslexic. He will. It will blow your mind. It's crazy. But yeah, and there's a great song called Years From Now, which is beautiful. Put it on. You'll be like, I know this one. I've heard this one before. Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, great stuff.
What I might do in homage to you when this podcast comes out on our Instagram at JamieB1973, every weekend we do a Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday show and tell of a vinyl. So I may well do that Dr. Hook and give you a call out when we do that.
Yes, please do.
I'm kind of interested to talk to people who are repeat offenders when it comes to going to gigs. From what I see, you fall into that category when it comes to Nick Cave, but I haven't seen much of your gig going outside of that. Are there any bands other than Nick Cave that you've gone and seen repeatedly time and time again whenever they tour?
Yeah, so when Prince was alive, I would go and see Prince whenever I could. I mean, I managed to get to see him 5 times in my life, which is just, amazing. Now he's no longer with us. Like, that's a special time for me, those ones. So there's a band called London Grammar who I've seen a few times with a good friend of mine. We go, whenever they're playing in London, we go and see them. Again, if you haven't heard their stuff, once you hear one of their songs, you will just be in there. You won't get back out again, and you'll be a fan. Trust me. There's a guy called Benjamin Clementine who I discovered through a track by Gorillaz on their 2017 album Humans. And I was like, who is this guy? His vocals were incredible. And when I started listening to his music, it's right up my street. Benjamin Clementine, by the way. Like, it is like piano, cello music, but like with these insane vocals. And when I say insane, I mean like as in like range and pitch, but also just the way he delivers. He's kind of like a Regina Spektor, if you know Regina Spektor, like the way she delivers the words. She doesn't just sing, she plays with it. That's the best way of saying it. She plays with the lyrics and how she delivers them, and that's exactly what Benjamin Clementine does. And if he is playing in London, I will go and see him immediately. He sits at a piano. I saw him in Bush Hall, I think December 22, and he was playing a secret gig at Bush Hall, and it was in the round. He sat in the middle at his piano. He had a choir around the piano with cellos and violins and that sort of thing as well. And he just tore it apart. And I was just absolutely blown away. I'll tell you what, if he was playing, I will go and see him straight away. But yeah, Nick and the Bad Seeds are the big one. They've got their gig coming up in Brighton this year. in July, and I am absolutely bricking it because, as you know, Jamie, you've got to be at the front, haven't you? You've got to be at
Yeah.
the front of a Nick gig. You can't be sitting at the back. I look at people sitting at the back and I think, what are you doing? Like, why did you come? There's no point, you know. But yeah, that I try and go and see whatever I can, you know. But yeah, those are some special ones I've seen off the top of my head.
London Grammar are a band that Ollie introduced me to many years ago when their first album came out. And we've seen them a number of times up and down the country as well.
There you go. Told you.
Hannah and Dan and Dot. Yeah,
Mhm.
we've been very lucky to meet them as well
Oh wow.
a couple of times. So, yeah, but they're an incredible band. And Hannah's voice is mind blowing,
Mhm.
absolutely mind blowing. So, yeah. Um, so, where does Ray LaMontagne start to fit into this? Have you seen him live?
Oh man, like RayLaMontagne is he is like a very, very special artist in my life. I've seen him live. He's so special that I traveled to New York to see him play because
Wow.
he um, he doesn't normally tour. I mean, when he first started out in about the early 2000s, he did come over to the UK a lot and play, you know, Royal Albert Hall or the Apollo and stuff like that, you know, and I didn't know, wasn't really going to gigs back then. I wasn't really sort of involved the way I am now. I didn't have that sort of head on me. But, and when I look back, I think, God, I wish I went to that show. Um, but he kind of tours America a lot. He's American, so he lives out in America and he tours America all the time pretty much, but he never really comes over to London or the UK or anything. So when he comes over, like that's immediately, and he's doing a tour this year and he is coming over and I've got tickets to 2 shows because it's just so special when I see him. But yeah, he's someone that hopefully when I talk about what we're talking about on the podcast today, that people will start to sort of understand his music a bit more, and they'll know one song and that's it. But he's got, I think, 9 albums now. So yeah, very special.
Well, I think it's a nice entry point into the album. You've chosen Trouble by Ray, hushed, soulful, introspective debut album that blends longing, warmth, and emotional grit is what I've found when I've researched this. Uh, Full transparency, as you well know, I'd never heard of him, never heard this album before you introduced me to it. But I've given it a few listens, and it sounds deeply personal. So
Mm.
I'm really fascinated to hear why it's the one you've brought. So when did this album first find you?
So back in 2004, I was dating a girl at the time, and we would always hang out in her room after school, and because we were sort of in sixth form, so we weren't school kids, but you know, we were sort of heading into sort of that adulthood time. But we would used to go back to her house, and we'd just, you know, sit and play records or CDs and that sort of thing, and watch TV. And on the TV, without fail, and we used to find it really funny and spooky at the same time, this advert came on, and I found it on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. Funnily enough, it's a 30-second TV advert for "Trouble" by RayLaMontagne, and he sings the opening lines of the chorus for the song "Trouble," and it just caught me. And I was like, you know, we find it funny and that sort of thing, but but secretly I was like, I want to find out more about this guy. This is really cool. I love that voice. So that's where that started, the power of television. And then, so I went out to the record store, and it wasn't on vinyl, which is weird because it is a vinyl album. Like it was brought out on CD, and I mean, it's been 20 years now since that came out, and they're doing the 20th anniversary tour. And he even said, you know, it brought out on CD because vinyl was seen as a dead format. It was digital was the king, and this is how it would work, and this is the future. So he did it on CD. So I went out straight out and bought the CD. But when you listen to it, as you say, it's a deeply personal album for Ray. The but listening to it on record, I'm not being that guy, by the way, who's like, record, it sounds a lot better on record. But like it does. I'm sorry, but it does. Like you can't really You can't CD it and just skip it. Or back then I had an iPod, but when I listened to that song, it was The Trouble is the name of the album. It's also the name of the single that he brought out, which a lot of people know. And it's funny because you say that, I say that, but still people will not know it. But it's one where if you played it, they go, "Oh, I think I've heard this song." Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that was the one that I heard, the first one, right? And then I kind of was like, I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to keep going with this album because it was a pleasure to do so. It was, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is difficult. I was thinking, oh, I want to hear more of his voice. And it just went on and on in deeper into that album. And my God, did I just fall in love immediately. That album was so influential on me. It was the starting of me picking up a guitar myself to learn how to play his songs on guitar, which then took me on a whole musical journey, which was a different part of my life now, but a journey that I'm so grateful that I did and experienced, because he was the start of it, because I was so influenced by this album.
That's incredible because there aren't many albums that have that impact on somebody first time round, on first listen. I know a lot of albums and a lot of artists that I talk to people about, and they're like, yeah, it's a grower. You've got to listen to the songs. You've got to let them unfold. You've got to let them marinate. It sounds like that just wasn't the experience for you at all. It was the total opposite.
It was, and the thing is funny because one Christmas, my dad, now stay with me with this, my dad bought me a pillow for Christmas, right? It was a special pillow that had a speaker inside it and a little sort of wire that stuck out of the pillow, and you could put your iPod into it and listen to your music whilst going to sleep. And back then it was like, wow, this is a crazy invention. And my dad bought it for me, and I would only listen to RayLaMontagne's Trouble while going to sleep. And that is like, you hear of people saying, I used to listen to this record going to sleep, but, on a record player or that, back in the 60s or 70s. But like, I listened to it through this pillow, which was quite funny, but thinking about it now. But it was so influential that I just wanted to listen to it all the time, that I even went to sleep listening to it.
So it really represents a chapter in your life, doesn't it?
Mm, mm.
And it sort of coincided, I guess, with you picking up that guitar. Where did that sort of getting into music and playing music take you? Was it just for personal use in the house, or did you get out and about with the guitar and play?
So, like, yeah. So I started playing. It wasn't immediate. Like I picked up the guitar a bit later on, but because of him, that's where I started sort of learning. I did pick up a really cheap guitar years and years ago, like when I first started listening to his music, but I didn't really teach myself to play until years later. So I taught myself how to play the chords and that sort of thing. Then I started writing my own music. Then I started getting influenced by different artists. Ray was like the start of it. Then I watched this incredible film called Once, which is a Irish film. It's a very low budget film, but it won an Oscar for the song in it called Falling Slowly, which is by Glenn Hansard. I think that's how you say his surname. But he is a beautiful singer-songwriter, and that film really influenced me as well. Like I said, really low budget film, but it just took off. And I love those sort of films as well. Those kind of like cult films that people think, oh, we only made £1,000 on this one, and then it just went absolute bananas. So, but he influenced me as well to start really writing properly and taking time with the crafting of writing songs. And yeah, that kind of started there. It's kind of funny because like it was a really good time in my life, but it was also at the end, unfortunately, it was a really bad time in my life. And it kind of manifested into my writing, as in like writing stories and short stories, which is then manifested into me doing a degree in creative writing at Open University, which has now influenced me doing my next job, which I'm now going self-employed as a celebrant. So picking that guitar up has been a humongous journey from doing that to where I am now.
That's incredible backstory. I'm thinking back to the record as I've listened to it in my years walking up and down the streets. There's a solitary feel to it. There seems to be a lot of longing, soul searching. There's doubt in there as well. But underneath it all, there's this really warm gentleness, and I think his voice is really evocative. I'm so glad you introduced me to it.
Oh, good.
Uh, what do you feel when you're listening to it? Is it a melancholy album for you, or do you see it more as like comfort and healing?
Oh, it's warmth. It's a warm album for me now. I mean, there's a track called "Burn," which is one of his older records. I mean, he did a few demos before, demo albums, and Burn was one. It used to be called "Burn in My Skin," but then he just shortened it to "Burn," and that's one that I learned on the guitar. I think that was actually one of the first songs of his that I learned on the guitar because I just loved the rawness of that. I really don't like that word rawness to kind of like describe something, but it's a raw feeling when you listen to it. The lyrics, the way that his vocal is as well, it's got this huge echo on his vocal, and it's almost like he's standing on the other side of the room, singing it. But just the guitar and the quietness, but also the roaring of his voice. And then it kind of just stops and then it just fades away. But you've witnessed something. You feel like you've witnessed something. But it's a very warm album coming from these sort of, some of them are quite tragic songs and tragic, but like there is a longing to them, as you say,
Mm.
it's just this feeling that he had. But the thing is as well, which will blow your mind a little bit, because I'm quite obviously an avid fan of RayLaMontagne. I listen to interviews of him there's loads of interviews of him on YouTube. He's quite a shy person, never really gave early interviews, but now he's kind of warming to it a lot more now. And he's said that what you hear on the record of Trouble are the demos for Trouble. So
No
he
way.
so
Really?
he yeah, so he made these songs I mean, I can't remember the story off the top of my head, for apologies, but I know that he said, because that's exactly what the interviewer said as well, exactly what you said. He was like, no way. He said, yep. He said, what you hear are the demos. And do you know what? I'm probably sure that there's, some fabrication in the way that they've made it a little bit cleaner, or a little bit, they might have done something for record purposes, but it is exactly, the vocals you hear, the guitar, everything is the starting, and they didn't do anything else with it. So
That's
yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. I wrote down 3 songs that I wanted to touch on, and you've already touched on the one that jumped out at me in Burn. The other one was Forever My Friend.
Oh, I'm so pleased you picked that one. I'm so
Yeah.
pleased you picked that one, because not only is that, oh, I can't pick. It's funny. People are, what's your favorite song? And my daughter asked me this the other day. It was so cute. She said, "Daddy, what's your favorite song?" And I was like, "Oh man," I was like, "I don't know." But she's so cute in the way she said it. But I was like, I have no idea. But I do think of Trouble immediately. But Forever My Friend is so special because it was part of me and my wife's wedding. Um,
Ah,
so we had that playing when we were signing the register. So at the end, we sat there and we had that playing over. It's in our wedding video as well. So it's like a very special song for us. But that was one song as well that I learned to play on the guitar. But I was so proud that I learned to play that, because it's quite a difficult one to play. But when I got it, I was like, it sounds exactly like the record. And I was like, oh, I'm
wow.
so pleased. But it's a beautiful, beautiful track. Yeah, but I'm pleased you picked that one, because also what I love about that is because it comes right after Burn. So Burn finishes, and it's this soft guitar, these echoing vocals, this weird sort of story, and you don't know what is happening, but of heartache. And then it just stops, and then Forever My Friend comes in, and it's this joyful sort of start,
Yeah.
ring ding, and it's just beautiful. And I love that transition. Normally that jars me when I listen to records. I think, oh, I wish they kind of I wish they kind of went a little bit softer, but it's just a perfect blend. Also, the reason why I'm glad you picked this one is because the outro is one of my favorite outros of any song. It's so beautiful. And there's a live version of it circulating. It was officially on a CD, like that was brought out, but it's beautiful. It's just stunning. When the violins come in and the cello, when he's playing, oh, it just swirls up in the sky like some sort of, like a mini tornado, beautiful thing with the leaves. Oh my God. I just get every time. Sometimes I just skip the track just to listen to the outro, but it's just beautiful. I'm so pleased you picked that one. Thanks.
Yeah. I know it's well, I mean, it jumped out at me. It was like it feels like it's about in the middle of the record, isn't it? And it feels like
Mm,
there's a bit of calm and reassurance, as you say. It feels like a lighter track. Certainly, it
mm,
has a more hopeful feeling to it, and I really connected with that one. The other one, right at the end, there's the most beautiful, almost spiritual kind of track called "All the Wild Horses." What's the
mm.
background to that one?
I don't. Well, I personally don't know the background to why what that's about, but I love that it just rolls. That's the best way I think of it. It rolls. It just comes in and it rolls in like a cloud. I just imagine
Yeah.
this cloud coming in, and then at the end, it just and even the lyrics. At the end, he says, roll away," and it just does. And then it just finishes, and that closes the album, and you think, "What?" It is just amazing. And again, vocals, these sort of echoey vocals, but he's very quiet, and you think, "What a song to finish on."
There
Beautiful.
is there are such a diverse range of tracks on here. We just talked about the end track, but let's start right at the beginning and the track that you picked out when you first started hearing his voice, Trouble Itself.
Mm.
What is it about that particular song that drew you in when you first heard it?
What drew me in with it because is the simplicity of the lyrics, the 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 way the bridge. I love the bridge because the bridge isn't vocals. It's just him going whoa, whoa. It's just that, and that's it. And it's the shortest bridge ever, and I love that. But also, there's a radio edit which you would hear on the TV and the radio a lot, which has this huge drums, like they are quite deafening drums on it, and like violins at the beginning. It goes ba-dum, psh, and then these violins go ba 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 dum bum ba, and it kind of adds a layer to the song. So if you're introduced to Ray LaMontagne through Trouble on the radio edit, when you listen to the album version, you don't get any of those strings or anything. It's
Ah,
quieter. It's more of a you're in the album now. You're not like, oh, here's a song to promote it. That's what the radio does, and I get that because it worked. It worked on me. But when
mm.
you get the album version, you're kind of going, ah, what's this? It's quieter. We're rolling in with it. And then once he gets you with that first trouble, you go, whoa, and then you just go in. And then you just don't come back out until you finish with all the wild horses. But yeah, that's what I love about that song.
There's there's a vulnerability about that song, and it sounds confessional as well. Is there a backstory to the
I
track
mean,
itself?
there's been he's never like I said, he's never opened up really about the songs on Trouble. And he's even been in interviews saying that he finds it very difficult to listen to that album because of how he's grown and as an artist and that side of things. And he thinks he's working too hard on those albums, the first three albums. But he said it's very difficult to listen back to it. But there's been speculation that it was something to do with his relationship with his wife, who he's known since school. So they've been together for all their life. There's all sorts of ideas of where that's come from. But yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure on where it is. But what's exciting is that, as I said to you earlier in the show, that there's a 20th anniversary tour coming up, which I am just he's playing Trouble from beginning to end, and
Mm.
he's playing in the Royal Albert Hall and the Apollo. He's also playing down in Brighton as well. So I mean, if you can get tickets, please go. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some sort of stories with it. Maybe he won't be giving everything away because I don't see him doing that, but I'm sure something will come about. But yeah, Trouble, I don't know the background too much, but also I guess that's quite good. You don't want to have it all laid out, do you
A, li-
really? Like, you
a,
don't
li-
want to be like, oh yeah, that's about this, because then you're not going to have that imagination. You're sort of honed in to why that record was made. If you don't know, it it's bigger. You know what I mean? Like, it builds up more in your imagination, and everyone can have their own opinions.
Yeah, a little bit of mystery, I think, in
Mm.
songwriting always goes a long, long way. Are there any tracks on here that you'd consider to be hidden gems?
Hold You in My Arms is a good one because the introduction is just guitar picking and hand claps, and it's beautiful, and it kind of reminds me of. I mean, I get these images of walking through like a orchard or like some outdoorsy sort of thing in the rain, like that, sort of like that to quote him, early morning rain, like this sort of beautiful scenery, and it just takes me somewhere when I start listening to that song. I sing it to my daughter as well, and it's a very special one for me. I love that. Um, there's a song called Hannah as well, which doesn't get enough credit, I don't think. I mean, this whole album doesn't get enough credit, but Hannah is a beautiful song as well. It's a story song. He's singing about this girl who we don't know who she is. We don't know who Hannah is or anything like that. But yeah, I love that one. Jolene. I know I'm going to just list them all out, but yeah. But Jolene as well. Everyone immediately thinks of Dolly Parton, and that's absolutely fine. And I did, but he's written a song called Jolene, and that was his second biggest single he ever released. Again, there's a radio edit which is a lot more drummy, and there's lots more things going on in it. But I mean, just beautiful entrance lyrics. He sings, "Cocaine flame in my bloodstream, sold my coat when I hit Spokane, bought myself a hard pack of cigarettes in the early morning rain." Beautiful. Oh, that's a beautiful line. I love it.
Yeah.
It just starts a story, man. Woo!
You've carried this album with you for a long time. Have any of the songs changed meaning for you over the years?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, Forever My Friends changed due to, like I said, it's more associated now with my family, with my wife specifically because of our wedding. And, I was a really romantic kid. I'd always imagine my wedding when I was younger, and what it would be, and what songs I would have. I'd have songs put aside for my wedding because they were that special. There's a song by Elton John called "The One," who, I mean, I was obsessed with that. Still am. I love that song, one of his best from the early '90s. But I always listened to that song when I was younger and imagined it at my wedding, and it played when we were getting married, and I burst into tears because I was like, I can't believe this song's carried all this way. But "Forever My Friend," definitely. "Shelter" as well. I haven't mentioned "Shelter," which is the second track, because that one kind of changed because I kind of didn't really get on with it at first. I thought it was too long. I thought it was a bit like, yeah, I didn't really get it. It wasn't really my thing. But as I've got older, it's part of it now. There's no skips on this track, is what the kids say. No
Mm.
skips. Um, but no, definitely.
I think this is probably a redundant question, but if you were recommending an album to somebody to listen to Ray for the first time, it pretty much sounds like Trouble is where you'd start, right?
Yeah, Trouble's where you start, and then he's, like I said, he's done a lot of albums. His later stuff, I mean, I'm a huge fan of RayLaMontagne, don't get me wrong, but his latest album I wasn't overstruck by. He's definitely changed. There was a period of time in 2014 he changed his sound, and people were comparing it to Dylan, going from acoustic to electric, and it divided people. It was a ghosting of RayLaMontagne, It was like,
Right.
what is happening? It was called Supernova. That was 2014. And even I was like, what is this? What is this? Like, it was more poppy, and it was more like, and I was like, what? Because you're used to Trouble. His second one was Till the Sun Turns Black, which is kind of like a very small, weird version of Trouble, like it's kind of like has the same elements of it, but it's more, I feel like a good way of saying it feels more burnt out. It feels like it's more like charred. It's weird Till the Sun Turns Black. Yeah, and to Gossip in the Grain is a heavy album. It was a double album on vinyl. It's a lot of tracks on there, but they're longer, and there's some more. There's another song called You Are the Best Thing," which again I think a few people have heard. I think it's the top song played on his Spotify if you go on there, which is a really upbeat song, trumpets and, you know, jazzy and ba-da-ba, and yeah, but then he kind of brought it back home with God Willing and The Creek Don't Rise, and that's the one I tell people to listen to as well. Trouble and God Willing and The Creek Don't Rise. They listen to those two albums, they all know RayLaMontagne.
The artwork is quite striking. Blindfolded lady dancing with the devil. I did a bit of research on this, and it seems that this was created by Jason Holley, an American illustrator known for highly symbolic, narrative-driven artwork. And Ray personally chose it himself, as he said it was powerful, poetic piece of art. What was your first reaction when you saw the artwork? Because you would have heard the music before you saw the artwork, right?
Yeah, I heard the music first. And when I saw, because also it was that TV advert, the album came out on the TV advert at the end, and I saw it and I was like, oh, okay. And again, it's with CD, vinyl and CD, the artwork is different. So the artwork for the CD is a little bit different. It still has the two characters on the front, but it's just presented differently. On the record, it is presented how I think it should be presented. And it's a difference. It's just the photo in the middle, and then you've got RayLaMontagne at the top, Trouble at the bottom, but it's separate. The photo, the image is its own thing on the front of the record. It's, I mean, again, I think it's one of those things where you don't want to know what it really means. You know, obviously people think it's dancing with the devil. Of course, that's what immediately you come to, but it could mean loads of different things. And it's, I mean, it is such a huge thing for me that it's the number one tattoo idea that I'm going to put on if I ever get a tattoo. It is the number one thing I want to get put on me is that image, because it's so beautiful. It's not so telling straight away. You can sort of think deeper into it and that sort of thing, but yeah, it's stunning. I mean, when you saw it, you must have thought similar or something.
I was baffled by it at first because I didn't know what to think. But when I listened to the album and then the visual representation for it, it kind of, there was things that it was very emotional. It had themes of kind of temptation, trust, fear, vulnerability. And I think when you have something like that that's so visually striking, do you think it represents the music inside?
Yeah, I think you can't. I think he's always been fantastic with his album covers, especially the first four albums. They were just, you know, you look at them and it represents, when you put the music on, you look at the album cover and you think, yes, that is the music, you know, that is exactly it. And Trouble is definitely, I mean, he couldn't have picked a better image to represent that album, what it is. He really thought about it, and that's what I love about it. There's when you open the sleeve as well. I didn't mention this. There's a quote from the Last Temptation of Christ in there, and I was
Ah.
like, I mean, if I've got it, and it was beautiful. I had it framed up in my room when I was learning about guitar. I'll very quickly say, it says, "And you, liar, teller of tall tales, you trample on the Lord's commandments underfoot. You murder, steal, commit adultery, and afterwards break down into tears, beat your chest, take down your guitar, and turn sin into song. Shrewd devil, you know very well that God pardons singers no matter what they do, because he can simply die for a song."
Wow. I think
That, that's it.
I think that links us back to what we said earlier about the sound of the album, the vulnerability. There's almost a confessional tone. And as you say, he's never said, but maybe there is something underpinning that. And he sees this as a bit of redemption.
Maybe, but you open up the record and that's the sleeve. When you pull out the record, that is there on the sleeve, like huge print. And I was like, what? And that just sets it in some way before you even put the record on. I mean, it's just classic. It is a classic album. And that's the thing. People were saying that when it came out in 2004. It sounds like something from the 70s. It sounds like something from way back you know? And it was done in the early 2000s, and it feels like a lost classic album that's been brought back, but it wasn't. And that's just the genius of it. And it's just incredible, man. Just incredible.
And it looks timeless. When
Yeah,
I
it does, doesn't it?
there's some albums you can look at and they can feel dated. You look at some of the 80s albums, some of the 90s albums, you can be transported straight back into that era. But when I look at this, I couldn't tell you when it was created. I would not be able to look at that and try and put a era on it. And I think that's a quality that many artists lack.
And it's this. I know I keep banging on about his 4 albums, but they are, in my personal opinion, are his best albums. Are his first 4 albums, and each one of them, if you look at their album artworks for those ones, they are, again, you will have exactly the same feeling. You were thinking, I don't know when this was done. Like, when was this made? All of it's early 2000s. It goes from 2004 to 2010 when God Willing came out, and in that time, it doesn't look like it's from that. Again, you can't pin it, as you just said. You can't do it. You can't put a time on it. But that's just what makes it so, like, above the rest. But it doesn't, because it isn't above the rest, because no one knows about it.
Hopefully they will after listening to this podcast episode. Well, we always close the podcast with a Friday spin. It's a recommendation that you might be listening to at the moment that you want our listeners to know about. Could be something old, new. What have you got for us?
So back, when was it? I think it was around 2010, 2011. There's a lady called Claire Maguire. She brought out an album called Light After Dark, and I heard a song on the radio called The Last Dance, and it took me away immediately when I heard it. It was just this beautiful sounding song. I mean, it just grew when you listen to the beginning, the intro. Her voice is similar to that of Hannah Reid of London Grammar. It's a soulful, very low voice, but she's just so gorgeous at singing these songs. And it came out. She's only done 2 albums, I believe, in her lifetime, but I just fell in love with it. Immediately bought her CD, just gobbled it all up, and just went in there and just was like, yum, 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 yum. This is a great album. It's just phenomenal. The Last Dance, I found out, is about her. Is about Michael Jackson when he passed away in 2009. It impacted her, so she wrote this song. And when you know that fact, when you listen to it, you think, that's kind of what that's about. Takes me back to what I was saying about Ray, is that you don't, it's good to know sometimes what the songs are about, because you just hear that then, don't you? Whereas if you didn't know that, you'd be like, what's this song about? What's going on? The mystery of it, as you say.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Last Dance, the shield and the sword, everything about it. There's a song called Bullet, which is just phenomenal. Happiest Pretenders. Oh, I could go on. But yeah, Claire Maguire, Light After Dark. Listen to that album. She bought it out on vinyl as well. Ties in quite nicely with this podcast. But she bought it out on a limited edition vinyl. She pressed it herself in this factory. She printed it on green vinyl, double album. Only 355 prints. She only went to do 300, but there was such a massive demand for it that it overran by 55. So there's 355 copies of it in the world, and I've got one of them. And that's that. I set alarms for that one. Honestly, I was like, I must have this in my collection, because that was quite an influential. It's funny because there's albums in my life that go hand in hand together, but are completely different. And RayLaMontagne's God Willing and The Creek Don't Rise, which came out in 2010, and Claire Maguire's Light After Dark from 2011, they go hand in hand, and they take me back to the 2010, 2011 era of my life. Very happy memories for me, but those 2 records, and it goes quite nicely as a sort of ending to this wonderful podcast. But yeah, it's that's my recommendation.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Will, for bringing your story and introducing me and the listeners to Trouble by Ray to the Friday Vinyl Club. Did you enjoy that?
I loved it. I wish we could do it again.
It's always so powerful hearing how music holds chapters of our lives. To our listeners, you can find some of the Trouble tracks on our companion playlist, the Friday Vinyl Club, on Spotify. I'll add links in the notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it, follow the show, or leave a rating. It really helps more people find us. You can contact me at JamieB1973 on Instagram, or email the Friday Vinyl Club at hotmail.co.uk. Until next time, keep your records spinning and keep your stories alive. This has been the Friday Vinyl Club with Will, talking about Trouble by RayLaMontagne. Thanks, Will. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
All right. Bye.
See ya. Bye.